Well, for more on the military angle, then, Alexandre Vautravers joins us on the program. He's the editor-in-chief at the Swiss Military Revue and the scientific director of the Center for Military History and Perspective. Thank you very much for joining us today, Alexandre. So Donald Trump has said that Iran's key nuclear facilities have been completely obliterated. Israel said earlier a little bit different, that its nuclear program was substantially hit, adding that we do nonetheless need to wait for details to emerge. So how likely or accurate do you think Donald Trump's claim is for now?
It's very difficult to know. We have certainly seen many aerial pictures, and we can only infer what the destruction may be. What we do know, however, is that there has been substantial resilience and substantial effort in the Islamic Republic of Iran to rebuild these facilities when they have been hit, struck, or damaged through cyber attacks and through other kinds of attacks. So nobody really knows how long the program could be delayed by such attacks.
Now, given that Israel, sir, is the only nuclear power in the region, that it has clearly unlimited, at least at this stage, support from the United States and other Western allies, that Western intelligence reports have suggested that Iran was years away from developing a nuclear weapon, what are Western powers concerned about? To the extent that, I mean, even if it did ever acquire strike capabilities, surely the world's most powerful nuclear countries would not allow that to happen.
Okay, I'm not sure that I can read into the framework that you presented, and I think that since the past few years, and especially with the war in Ukraine, I think that we need to look at things a little bit differently than the binary, those countries that have nuclear weapons and those who have not. There's a third category, and the third category is those so-called threshold states, and there's actually many of these countries in the region. And I think that sparked with the very unfortunate events in Ukraine since 2022, I think many countries nowadays are gearing up in order to acquire or be in a position to acquire on a very short notice some nuclear capability. And so Iran is a threshold state. We have known that for 20 years, but so are many other countries in the region.
So after a week of strikes, of Israeli strikes in Iran, and now the U.S.'s involvement, what do you think remains? I mean, you talked about those 3 nuclear sites, but on the whole, what do you think remains of Iran's military capabilities right now? Does it have any cards to play at this point?
Yes, it does. The traditional military, the conventional armed forces, if you will, have systematically, since the past decades, been underinvested because, for example, the Iranian Air Force has always been considered somewhat suspicious by the political geniuses of the Islamic regime for their ties with, for their past ties with the United States in particular. So the armed forces are traditionally underfunded. We can say that a lot of their command and control capabilities have been severely hurt, have been disabled. We know that a lot of the air defenses are incapable of posing a serious threat right now to anybody flying over Iranian airspace. But the rest of the armed forces are quite intact, and the land forces in particular are quite numerous and quite substantial in the region. With regards to the Revolutionary Guards, then we're focusing on a more indirect approach. And here, I think we can say that outside of a certain number of leaders of the Pasdaran, then these capabilities are very much intact.
And with regard to its once allies in the region, I mean, it doesn't really have any strong allies that remain. All of its allies have been weakened in the past year or two. So, I mean, in terms of its response, what do you expect to see realistically?
It is true that there's no alliances in the region. At the same time, there are many different ties, and the position of Turkey, in particular, trying to mediate a ceasefire, is a very interesting one because the ties that exist between Turkey and Iran are or can be substantial. With regard to certain other countries, I'm thinking of Iraq, for example. The ties in the recent years, since 2003, have also been been substantially higher. What can we expect? I think that probably the attempt to put up a conventional fight, a conventional defense against Israel and the United States air assets that are being thrown against Iran right now are probably not going to be very successful. However, we can probably expect indirect attacks in many shapes or form, and these may take place immediately near Iran's borders, or they could take place very far away, because, as I said, the main resort, the main asset to get back at the United States in the hands of the regime in Tehran is not so much the conventional armed forces as the Pasdaran or the Republican Guards.
So, sir, do you see any real possibility for a diplomatic breakthrough in the coming weeks? What would both sides require?
There needs to be, in the end, we know already this war is not going to continue to take place at this very intensive rhythm for very, very long, simply because it is a very expensive way to wage war. Israel is probably not going to be able to put up simply the numbers of assets that it has deployed. This is why Israel has traditionally had a strategy of asymmetric escalation. So Israel has the kind of forces that allow it to force the United States into a conflict. And this is now what has happened. And the next steps are very much going to be in the United States' hands. How far does the United States want to get involved, and what are the objectives? If the objectives are just to neutralize a certain number of key sites, this is probably something that can be done within a few days, and we can call it a day and then move on to other things and start negotiations. If, on the other hand, the objectives and the missions creep into targeting and disabling all of the strategic weapons, assets, the ballistic capabilities of the Islamic Republic of Iran, then this is probably something that will take weeks, if not months. And if we are talking about regime change or security guarantees for Israel, then unfortunately there is no way that anybody can give these guarantees without boots on the ground.
Alexandre Vautravers, thank you very much for coming on the show today.